You're going to be introduced to argumentation and debate. You'll also be able to tell how to evaluate books, the popular books, the conspiracy theory books. Speaking of conspiracy theories, a lot of those conspiracy theories, like the reptilian theories, is just irrational. You're also going to learn how being judgmental is actually pretty normal. We'll talk about why the dictionary is not always helpful in resolving disputes. We'll talk about why there's no such thing as your truth and my truth. There's only the truth. How controversial. The video you just saw where I'm talking about Kaepernick and all that, I made that a couple of years ago. And since then, I've had that conversation in probably 7 or 8 prisons with dozens of classrooms, and it's always been an exciting topic. I've been told that it's too provocative to talk about that sort of thing in prison, but my case is that if we're going to talk about critical thinking, then we ought to be able to apply critical thinking to the most important issues of our time. Those are going to be political, those are going to be religious, those are going to be ethical. And if you listened closely, I think you would agree that if people understood the issues, dissected them, analyzed them, thought about them in those ways, that it might tone down a lot of the unnecessary drama. In my view, if we're not going to use critical thinking for those important issues, then what are we using it for? I mean, we're not using critical thinking to decide whether or not we should go to chow or eat commissary at the house. We're using critical thinking about important subjects in life. And in prison, some of those are going to be provocative, and we need to talk about it. Now, I'd change some of the things, the way I kind of broke it down after I've had conversations with, hundreds of people in the prisons over the last couple of years. They brought some things to mind, and some I might remake it in the critical thinking course, 2nd edition of 2024 or something. But as of right now, I still think it's pretty legit. So in this course on critical thinking, you're only going to get it in bits and pieces every week. I'm trying to put it together as a full course that'll be available in the free world, but right now I'm just going to be making it in bits and pieces and giving it to you all, every week, in addition to some things I'm going to do on philosophy, book commentaries, news commentary, things like that. But we'll be talking about critical thinking. I'm going to give you a definition. I'm going to talk about several different definitions. We're going to talk about the latest research on critical thinking, whether it's in psychological research or philosophical discussions. You're going to learn how to evaluate controversial issues like the ones with Kaepernick and kneeling during the national anthem. You're going to be introduced to argumentation and debate. And no, I don't mean argumentation in the sense of getting, pissed off at each other and learning how to win arguments like a crooked lawyer. I mean learning how to understand and evaluate arguments and construct the best argument that will lead to truth. You'll also be able to tell how to evaluate books that are floating around the prison, the popular books, the conspiracy theory books, and tell whether or not they're worth your time, whether you should bother even reading them, how to evaluate the actual evidence and argumentation in those books to determine if it's legitimate. Speaking of conspiracy theories, you're going to learn why a lot of those conspiracy theories, like the reptilian theories, is just irrational. There's legit conspiracy theories, and then there's irrational conspiracy theories. And irrational conspiracy theories permeate the prison system. And I really want to talk about them and dissect them. You're also going to learn how being judgmental is actually pretty normal. In fact, it's the most normal thing you can do as a rational person. We'll talk about why the dictionary is not always helpful in resolving disputes. We'll talk about why there's no such thing as your truth and my truth. There's only the truth. How controversial. Hopefully, as we go, I'll talk about current controversies in the news. We'll use the things we're learning and apply it to the real world. I might even bring in some of my co-hosts and partners that I work with who don't always agree with me on these subjects, just so you can see how we would work things out. But here's one important thing I want to stress. One of many important things I want to stress. If you learn these things, you don't always have to agree with me. Just like in my classes, students are not getting graded as to whether or not they agree with me. They're only getting graded as to whether or not they understood the material. They can forget about it as soon as they leave the class. If you actually learn these things, I think you will begin to see the world in a very different way. It will transform the way that you see the rest of the world. And I think that'll be beneficial to you, but other people might not see it as beneficial. They might start to see you as weird and arrogant or judgmental. you'll understand why they believe that. But I think for all the negative criticism you might get because you are beginning to see the world in a different way, it will ultimately benefit your life. I think you'll agree after you give it some time. And I hope that you would share these videos and this information with other people. Use it to start study groups and argue back and forth with each other in a peaceful and substantive, beneficial way. The fact that you all have tablets is really going to change the whole landscape of the prison culture, and getting good, solid information into the prison system is one of the things I think has been missing for a long time. But now you all have access mostly to everything we do in the world, and I hope to be a positive light by helping you think critically about all the information that you're going to consume.